Good morning. Hope you all are doing well. Today we shall do the poem from your honeysuckle book, class 6, from lesson 8. And the name of the poem is Vocation. This poem is written by Rabindranath Tagore and displays a child's yearning and wishes. It speaks about how a child is unaware of the harshness connected to daily life and gets attracted to various things in life. In this poem, a child speaks about his wishes and attractions. It shows the states of his wavering but innocent mind. The poem is about how a child gets attracted to the ways of people around him and finds different curiosities and attractions in their lives. He is not aware of the tough routine they have to go through. It also shows his innocence and lack of worldly sense. At three different points of the time during the day, the child notices different kinds of people and gets impressed by their free choices and independent way of life. Before getting into the poem, let me give you a brief introduction of the poet Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore was born on 7th May 1861 and he died on 7th August 1941. Sobriquet Gurudev. Sobriquet means nickname of any person. So Rabindranath Tagore was often referred as Gurudev. He was a Bengali person having wide-ranging knowledge who reshaped his region's literature and music. He was author of Gitanjali. He became the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1913. Tagore wrote poetry as an 8-year-old. His novels, stories, songs, dance dramas, and essays spoke to topics political and personal. His compositions were chosen by two nations as national anthems. The Republic of India's Jana Gana Mana and Bangladesh Amar Shanar Bangla was written by the great Rabindranath Tagore. Before getting into the explanation, let me recite the poem for you. Vocation. When the gong sounds 10 in the morning and I walk to the school by a lane, every day I meet the hawker crying bangles, crystal bangles. There is nothing to hurry him on. There is no road he must take, no place he must go to, no time when he must come home. I wish I were a hawker, spending my day in the road, crying bangles, crystal bangles. When at 4 in the afternoon I come back from the school, I can see through the gate of that house the gardener digging the ground. He does what he likes with his spade. He soils his clothes with dust. Nobody takes him to task if he gets baked in the sun or gets wet. I wish I were a gardener digging away at the garden with nobody to stop me from digging. Just as it gets dark in the evening and my mother sends me to bed, I can see through my open window the watchman walking up and down. The lane is dark and lonely, and the street lamp stands like a giant with one red eye in its head. The watchman swings his lantern and walks with his shadow at his side, and never once goes to bed in his life. I wish I were a watchman, walking the street all night, chasing the shadows with my lantern. Rabindranath Tagore. So let's get started with the explanation part of the poem. Do you understand, children, what is vocation? Vocation is actually a type of profession which demands special commitment and gives a person happiness and fulfillment. That is, whatever you dream to become in your future to make money, and that would give you happiness and fulfillment is the vocation. When the gong sounds 10 in the morning and I walk to the school by our lane. So what is gong? Gong is actually an object made of metal which gives sound when struck. As you can see here, this is the gong. So at 10 o'clock when the gong sounds, it's a time for him to go to school. And he usually takes a road through which he reaches his school. Every day I meet the hawker crying bangles, crystal bangles. On his way to school, he usually meets a hawker. And that salesperson or that hawker shouts bangles, crystal bangles to sell his bangles. There is nothing to hurry him on. There is no road he must take, no place when he must go to, no time when he must come home. So while looking at him, the child had a thought that the vendor or the hawker was free. He was in no hurry to reach anywhere, unlike the child, like you people, who had to reach his school on time and come back home. This child thinks that the bangle seller was free of any time constraint. He has no place boundaries, means he was free to move to any place. Unlike that boy, he has no particular route. He can take any road he wishes. He felt as if he was under strict observations. The boy himself was under strict observation. He has to get up at 6, get ready, go to school, come back straight from school, then have your lunch, and so on. The routine timetable. But what he observes about the vendor, that the vendor enjoys his complete freedom. He is not at all having any restrictions, no time foundation, no particular road that he has to take. I wish I were a hawker spending my day in the road, crying bangles, crystal bangles. Thus, the child was so impressed by the freedom of the vendor that he wished to be a hawker. This child wishes to be a hawker. He wished to move freely and shout just like him in the street, without any time restrictions. Second stanza. When at 4 in the afternoon I come back from the school, I can see through the gate of that house the gardener digging the ground. The child says while coming back from school at 4 in the afternoon, he noticed the gardener through the gate of that particular house. And he would peep out and notice him digging soil, digging on the ground. He does what he likes with his spade. He soils his clothes with dust. Nobody takes him to task if he gets baked in the sun or gets wet. So what is spade? You can see the image of spade here. It's a sharp-edged tool used for digging and cutting. Next term used here, phrase used here is baked in the sun. That is heated because of excessive sunlight. Then digging away means to devote serious and consistent effort. So what happens here? The child gets attracted by the freedom of the gardener to be in the dust and do the things of his choice with his tools. He thought that the gardener had the freedom to dirty his clothes with soil, play with his tools, stay in the sun for longer hours, get wet with sweat, or do anything, and he was not getting any punishment for all this. Right? Whereas he would have been punished for all these acts. right? If you people remain in the sunlight for longer hours, if you get sweat, if you dirty your clothes, your mother is for sure going to scold you, going to punish you for what you have done, right? I wish I were a gardener digging away at the garden with nobody to stop me from digging. So completely unaware of the hardships of that worker, he wished to be a gardener to do things of his choice and no one around him to stop. So no one would, he wished to become a garden so that nobody could stop him from doing what he wished, to play in the soil, to play with the tools, to dig in the ground, whatever he does, nobody would stop him. Third stanza. Just as it gets dark in the evening and my mother sends me to bed, I can see through my open window the watchman walking up and down. The lane is dark and lonely, and the street lamp stands like a giant with one red eye in its head. At night, when his mother would send him to sleep, when it gets dark, it's evening, and when his mother sends him to sleep, in his room there is an open window, and from there he would notice a watchman walking here and there, from one side to other in the dark, and the street is completely desolate, a lonely street. He also, that is, this watchman also had a lamp in his hand, which looked to him like a superhuman with a red eye in its head. So what he is telling, that this watchman is carrying a lantern and the street is completely desolate. Nobody is there on the street and he walks up and down. The watchman swings his lantern and walks with his shadow at his side and never once go to bed in his life. I wish I were a watchman walking the street all night, chasing the shadows with my lantern. Chasing means to run after somebody. Okay, so what he says, the watchman swings his lantern when he is walking and his shadow always follows him. Beside him there would be a shadow. And this watchman is walking the whole night and nobody forces him to sleep. This watchman never sleeps in his life. But you children, your parents tell you by 10 o'clock you must be in the bed. You are compelled to go to bed whether you want to sleep or not. You have to go to bed. But this watchman is free. Nobody compels him to sleep. The whole life he doesn't go to sleep in the night. And then what he does? The child was so attracted to the moves of the watchman that he wished to be a watchman who could walk all the night in the streets, running after his shadows with a lantern in the hand, and chasing the thieves in the night. Rabindranath Tagore. The moral of the poem is, the poet wants the children to appreciate the vocations of different kind, notwithstanding the smallness or greatness of it. The poem describes a child's longing for freedom he sees in the lives of those around him. The young boy values only freedom without authority. The boy doesn't see the hardships that each worker faces. And keep in mind, my dear children, only education can work wonders in your life. Only with education you can have discipline in life and you can own the luxuries of modern life. Thank you.